Well, thank you very much for having me here at the conference. Not that I'm actually here at the conference. My sincere apologies that in the last minute I was not able to make it because of unforeseen circumstances with my family. So I come to you as a recording and I'm doing my best to learn how to do that on the fly. So here we go. The first thing that I'd like to make really clear is how grateful I am to be contributing to this session. The session sounds really good. I just wish I was there to benefit more from the other speakers. My name's Lorimer Moseley. As you can see from this slide, I'm a physiotherapist by training and I'm a pain scientist. So I'm very interested in persistent pain. I have a few disclosures. So normally when you put up these slides, people go over them quite quickly, but as a brain scientist, it's really important to me that you understand what might be in it for me. And that's how the brain works. The brain is under a constant mass of different influences, and they all have the potential to modify outcome. So, as you can see, I have slept with the devil. I get royalties for books, so I'll be secretly trying to get you to think you should buy one. And I get research support from Commonwealth and also from industry. So I've got a few messages that I'd like to get across over the next 12 minutes or so. The first is this, that what we now know in contemporary pain science is that pain is a protector of tissues. It's not a marker of tissue health. And this might sound semantic, but it's actually a critical aspect of understanding the person with persistent pain. Of course, we have an incredible array of detectors across the tissues of our body. Those detectors respond to all sorts of different mechanical input, thermal changes and chemical changes. And the free nerve endings, the nociceptors, are the ones that are erroneously called pain fibers. But they're often called that because we know their activation in the presence of large changes in tissue environment can often trigger pain. And when we look closely at free nerve endings or nociceptors, we realise they actually detect almost anything that happens in the tissues of the body. So this is an artist's version here of the sort of ion channels on nociceptors, and hopefully you can see that we've got detectors for changes in temperature, changes in mechanical and chemical environment. We've also got a very sophisticated mechanism by which the danger detectors, which is how we would make sense of this with patients, the danger detectors or nociceptors become more sensitive in the presence of inflammation. And most of you will know of peripheral sensitization. All of you will have experienced that with sunburn, where your skin becomes very sensitive to warmth. So it hurts to be in a warm shower. That's because of the effect of inflammation on our danger detectors. It's an exquisite and sophisticated system. One experience that reminds us that pain is not about measuring the state of the tissues, but is about urging protection, is the experience of healing after a twisted ankle. Most people have experienced a twisted ankle, and that ankle will stop hurting a long time before it's back to normal physically. If pain was measuring the state of the ankle, then pain would hang around for 4 to 6 weeks, and often it does not. What about the pain that we experience before there is any injury at all? If the person next to you was to squeeze your fingernail slowly and get harder and harder, it would hurt, and it would possibly be an 8 out of 10 pain before you've actually incurred any damage to your finger. If you were squeezing it, this is very interesting, if you were doing the squeezing, the pain would be less. But in either case, we have pain well before injury. Some back pains are brutally painful, 8 or 9 out of 10, without any demonstrable evidence of tissue damage. Now, to me, that makes total sense. If we're appreciating pain to be about protection, not damage, then it would make sense to be very well protected around your spinal cord. So that's not altogether surprising. What is surprising is that often catastrophic life-threatening injuries are not painful until the individual is safe. So the classic discussion in our field about this would be the person who might have his arm ripped off, who is pain-free until he's in the hospital or in the ambulance, or soldiers on the battlefield who have life-threatening catastrophic injuries. Now, we can make sense of that if pain is about protection. Where protection would not be helpful, protection of the body part, the brain may well decide not to produce pain. And that language of producing pain reflects where the field is at the moment, rather than detecting or interpreting or registering pain. We say producing pain. The second key message that I would like to get across is that there are many contributions to anyone's pain. Now, this again might seem slightly surprising, but it allows us to explain things like this, that in violinists, fingers on their left hand are more sensitive than fingers on their right hand to noxious stimuli, but not non-noxious stimuli. Why might that be the case? Well, when this study was done when I was in the UK, and we interviewed professional musicians, and it's very clear to professional string players that their left hand is way more important than their right. If they injure one finger on their left hand, they can't play. If they injure one finger on their right hand, they can still play. So there is a difference in the need to protect, but no difference in the state of the tissue. This is an experiment that we did some time ago where we got supposedly normal, healthy volunteers, and we delivered a very cold stimulus to the back of their hand. We did that under two conditions. One, in which they were shown a red light or a red visual cue at the same time as the stimulus, and the other in which they were shown a light blue cue at the same time as the stimulus. Now, these cues have inherent meaning to us. Red means hot and danger, blue means cold and not necessarily danger. We took many measures in this experiment, but the measure that we were most interested in was this one, and that's pain. How much does it hurt? Each of those yellow lines represents an individual, and at each end there's the average of 5 or 6 stimuli. Hopefully you can see quite clearly that the stimulus hurts more when you see a red light than if you see a blue light, but the actual noxious stimulus is the same. What's changing pain is credible evidence about the need to protect. Number 3, contemporary models of brain function and neuroplasticity explain persistent pain states really well. And there's a few aspects to this. One is that we now conceptualize brain outputs, of which pain is one, of which movement is one. For example, brain outputs reflect activation of neuroimmune networks across the brain, and another way of describing them is to call them neurotags or neural representations. So if we were to conceptualize pain as being the result of activating the pain neurotag, so the neuroimmune network in the brain, activity of which produces pain, we know that those neural networks are under the influence of many other neural networks or neurotags. So activation of the pain neurotag depends on the balance of influences at the back end of that. Now, the old model of pain, which could not accommodate many persistent pain states, was pitched or conceptualized nociception as being the substrate of pain, or even conflated those two things, that nociception is pain and pain is nociception. Now that idea is very old school in the pain field. What we now fully appreciate is that nociception is one of a potentially infinite number of influences over the pain neurotag. Nociception neurotags are very powerful influences of pain neurotags. We know that, and it obeys the principles of neurotags. However, this clearly will mean that nociception is a powerful modulator of pain. So the harder the person next to you squeezes on your fingernail, normally, the more it hurts. But it's easy to mistake this situation for nociception being the only modulator we know that nociception is neither sufficient nor necessary for pain. So this is a quote by Donald Price, I think, but it's one of my favourite quotes in the pain field because it reminds us that activity in nociceptors is neither sufficient nor necessary for pain. And that makes sense if pain is about protection. It doesn't make as much sense if pain is simply about telling us the state of the tissues of the body. This multi-component contribution to pain means that anything at all that suggests the organism needs protecting has the potential to influence the pain neurotag, so to take pain up. Anything at all that suggests to the organism it doesn't need protecting has the potential to take pain down. Number 5, learning is an irresistible force. I love this one. I think that organisms cannot not learn. They are inherently bioplastic, and bioplasticity refers to that property that we know of as neuroplasticity, the ability of the nervous system to change in structure and function with stimuli. Well, all of our systems change in structure and function potentially with stimuli. So we fully appreciate that in the muscular system. We fully appreciate it learning a language, for example, neuroplasticity, muscular plasticity, bone plasticity. Bones change when you put demands on them. So we are inherently bioplastic. And this is a really profound observation for people in pain. We know that some of these adaptations occur very quickly in response to inflammation. I mentioned that before. So inflammation increases danger detection in the periphery, a beautiful protective device. Here's some examples of inflammatory situations. The one on the right, I think, is made up, but it's to advertise British disc jockeys coming to Australia. But sunburn is an excellent example of this increased sensitivity of danger detection within the system. Beautiful for protecting tissues that need to heal. Exactly the same functional effect occurs when our system learns pain. So persistent pain without persistent injury still involves adaptations within the nervous system and the immune system and the connection between the two, such that our body learns pain. So we still have this increased inbuilt protection, but now it's happening within the danger transmission pathways, not the danger detection pathways. But the functional response is exactly the same. This is an example of bioplasticity at work, or what Norman Doidge would describe as the dark side of bioplasticity, that can lead people to severe pain when their bodies are not in danger. One way we try to get this across to patients is to conceptualise pain as the loyal friend who keeps them safe and protects them from harm and protects their tissues while they heal. But changes within the nervous system, bioplastic changes, and an increase in the influence of all the other factors in the brain influencing the pain neurotag, means that loyal friend has become a brutal beast. The good news for us is that it is possible to retrain the beast because of that same property of bioplasticity. Number 6 is that understanding pain, understanding the truly biopsychosocial nature of pain, and then setting out to retrain your pain system to be less protective, it actually works. There's randomized controlled trials galore that show this to be the case. They also show that it's not quick, it's slow, and it's a journey. And people need to understand why they're taking on a biopsychosocial approach to a problem that they thought was purely in the tissues. While you think pain is a measure of the state of the tissues, it makes no sense to take a biopsychosocial approach. It makes no sense to move even though it might hurt. Because in these old ideas of pain, pain would equal damage. And we now know that's not the case. Who agrees with this? Well, this is just a selection of organisations who have officially endorsed these approaches to pain and persistent pain states to emphasise education, learning about the relationship between pain and injury and the biopsychosociality of pain, exercise and movement, and psychological therapies. We have to consider this, though, that persisting pain is a massive problem. I argue we need a revolution. We actually know how best to prevent and treat persistent pain, but we're not doing it. And I think that the best approaches actually make no sense to most people. As long as you think pain is a measure of tissue health or ill health, then you won't do movement and exercise and activity. And I think this applies to clinicians as well. I think that health professionals, while they misunderstand pain, will have a very limited range of responses to someone in persistent pain. The missing link here seems to be contemporary pain education. Here's some data from an audit study of 1,400 patients, and a good follow-up, 92%. These people on average had pain for 8 years before participating in this audit trial. So this is the average pain over the last 2 days of people who changed the way they understand pain. They flipped it on its head in that first 2 or 3 weeks, and hopefully you can see a year later this is a really good outcome. These are the people who don't change their understanding of pain, even though everything else about what we're trying to do is the same. I think these data show that if people learn why they hurt, contemporary pain science, they hurt less over time, and the long-term benefit does appear to be massive. So what can you do as a physician? The brief was to give some resources. It's hard, but I think people should be able to answer these questions. Clinicians should be able to answer these questions. How do I know if my pain system is being overprotective? How do I retrain my pain system to be less protective? And am I safe to move? Here's some websites you can go to learn more about that. And there's resources on there for clinicians and for patients. Thank you very much for having me. I apologise again that I'm not in person, but I'm pretty good. I've got a good face for radio, so this might be the beginning of something great. Thank you very much.